social media comments really do bring me down. I've had comments from Australians telling me that I'm wrong about something. He said, oh, like, f*** off back to India, like, you dirty curry muncher or something like that.
What was that conversation like that you had with yourself when things were tough?
I lost a huge piece of my independence by not being able to speak the language. Again, that was something I was not expecting. They think that they need to have perfect grammar and perfect sentences. Because they think they need to be perfect, they're scared to try because they're scared to make mistakes. And it's this vicious cycle. There were times I would forget to eat dinner. My husband would get home from the gym at like 10 and say, have you eaten? And I'm like, what's the time? No, I haven't. Because in between that, I was still having to teach. Back then I was doing, I think I was on 5 or 6 hours teaching a day, checking homework, writing lesson plans, doing all my admin stuff. The thing that really bothers me about Australian slang is that
Before we dive into this conversation, please give me just 20 seconds. I know you've got hundreds of podcasts you could listen to, but any point during Unlayered, you paused and thought, that was me, or I felt that too. I'd love to ask a quick, simple favor. Please help me with a follow or subscribe to my channel, because that one click will not only help me bring more conversations to you, but for others who might need it. And it means the world for this work to continue. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conversation.
Hi Amanda, welcome to Unlayered. Really excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me here, Pan. Now the roles have flipped. I think it was about a year ago I got a notification that we did my podcast interview. So yes, really happy to be here.
I was reflecting on that actually because I know you invited me to your podcast last year around September. So it's been like 8 months. So for me, it's like a full circle moment, you know, me inviting Amanda, the number one Aussie English teacher, right, to my podcast. I'm so grateful, but so humble to have you here. Really excited. So I wanted to dive in, you know, because a lot of people know you as this expert Aussie English teacher. You build an amazing brand. You're smashing it everywhere, right? As you could see, But I wanted to talk about the other side of this experience. Can you take us back to that moment where you booked a one-way flight to India with 3 suitcases and 0 Hindi, right? Can you take us back to that moment?
All right. So yes, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Pan. So I have been living in India now for over 6 years. It was my 6-year anniversary in June. And so very, very, very quick backstory. I moved here to get married. My husband is Indian. We met in March 2018. I came to India for a holiday. While I was on holidays, I met him. We stayed in touch. I went back to Australia. We were in a long distance relationship and we both knew that one of us would have to make the move. The question was, who would it be? It was me. I volunteered for a few reasons. It was easier for me to move here. Visa-wise, it was absolutely easier for me to come. Yeah. I didn't have any ties. Besides my family, I didn't have anything holding me back in Australia. I didn't own my own home. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I still don't. I didn't have my own business. I was just working like a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job. So it just made sense. And I also wanted the change. So I went through a couple of really, really traumatic experiences in Brisbane and I thought it's the perfect time to move. So I gave myself a year. I remember sitting here in India, it was June 2018. My husband and I, boyfriend and girlfriend at that time, we were drunk at the pub. And I just said to him, I want to move here, but I want to do it in a year. And I stuck to that. The following June, I moved. And I said, I want to give myself processing time to make sure this is what I want. I have to give my family processing time for them to really come around to the idea that I'm going to be moving. And just so that they know, and I know it's not a rash decision because I have a bit of a habit of making impulse choices. So I thought 1 year is a really good time. So at the point of moving, I'd already visited India 5 times.
Okay.
And I really thought that I would be okay. But the things that I wasn't expecting was being on holidays is very different to moving somewhere. And once that honeymoon period wore off, where I thought, that I'm actually here, I'm I'm here permanently, that's when I was like, oh my gosh. And then also I I was mentally prepared for the language barrier. I knew that going outside there would be that language barrier, but one thing I wasn't prepared for was the language barrier inside my home. So when my husband's family would come over, his parents don't know English. They don't know they know some words because it's Hinglish, right? But they don't speak English. So when they would come over, I wasn't expecting to feel lonely in my own home because I wasn't part of conversations. And my husband tried to include me, but I didn't know a single word of Hindi. It was really hard for him to translate every conversation. Yeah, I wasn't expecting those things. And then 9 months after I moved, the pandemic hit. So all of these plans we had for married life and living in India, gone because we were stuck at home.
My gosh, like that's such a story, right? Because I know that there were some keywords, like you had a bit of a plan. It's good that you have that flexibility and the freedom to give yourself 1 year. And I like the fact that you gave processing time for your family as well. That is important.
Yeah.
Because for some migrants, they might not have that luxury to give processing time. It's like I remember I moved, I got the visa and moved. I had to move. But I really like that you shared about how the challenges started from your own home, because it's such a big decision, right? To getting married and moving into a household where they barely speak English, right?
Yeah.
How does that have an impact on maybe the relationship with your extended family and then your day-to-day life, that gap?
Yeah. So the thing about language is that it's not just words. You really can communicate through hand gestures, through body language, through tone, all of those things. So it was hard, but with Google Translate, between that, my husband, my sister-in-law who speaks English, all these gestures and things and keywords, we made do. My gosh, though, outside, couldn't speak a word. Could not speak a word to people. Like if my phone rang, I refused to answer my phone. I never answered my phone if it was an Indian number, because what could I say? I couldn't speak. Before I moved here, my mother-in-law spent a lot of time in the flat where my husband was living. And she used to make tea for the local, for the workers inside where we lived, the complex. So the people who would collect our rubbish and things like that. So when I moved in, she, to give us privacy, went back to the village and spent most of her time there. But those workers kept coming for tea. I didn't know how to make Indian tea. I didn't know how to make chai. I couldn't speak Hindi. I didn't know what they were asking. There was one time my husband wasn't home. He wasn't answering his phone, and I closed the door on someone's face because I literally had no idea what they were talking about.
Oh no, I don't want to sit in that situation where you have to shut on door out of that uncomfortness, right? Because there's a whole different language. I can't imagine what you've gone through, right? Because we sometimes see that migrant experience as someone moving from a South Asian country, Middle East or South American, non-English speaking country to an English speaking country. That's why I find your story so fascinating, because it's the reversal of it, where you moved from Australia to India, and then you find the same kind of similar challenges that other migrants go through with the language barrier. Now, I find this post or this statement very powerful, incredibly powerful. You say that sometimes we don't realize how much of identity that we find in our voice. Can you expand on that? Yeah.
So I lost a huge piece of my independence by not being able to speak the language. Again, that was something I was not expecting. I didn't realize how heavily I would have to rely on my husband. And as someone who was a very independent woman in Australia, I got my first job at 15 working in my parents' cafe. And as soon as we started working, they said to us, from now on, you pay for yourself. If you want something, you pay for it because you're earning your own money. So when I moved to India, I was almost 30. So for half of my life, I'd been earning my own money and paying my own bills and paying my own way. And then to come here, not be allowed to work. I ran through my savings because I wasn't working. And then to be financially independent on someone and independent on someone for my voice. Oh my gosh, it was so hard. I would have to, like give my husband the phone if someone called. I would have to get him to translate everything. Social gatherings with his friends were always really, really uncomfortable. I didn't like it because I couldn't understand what was going on. And I couldn't even it took me a couple of months to make friends.
Yeah.
And when I did start to make friends, my husband would have to drive me because I didn't know the language, that I couldn't catch a taxi or an Uber or whatever to be able to communicate to the driver about where I want to go. And because I didn't have that communication skill, my husband didn't feel comfortable sending me by myself. So again, all of these little things I had to do around him. So if he was free, oh my gosh, and having to ask someone, what's your availability so I can meet my friends? I really did not like it. I did not like it at all. So yeah, these things I wasn't really expecting. And so to lose a piece of my independence, which was my voice, it was so tough. So that was one of the motivators to learn the language, as well as so I could have a really, good relationship with my in-laws, because my plan to move here, my intention is that it's long term. I also didn't like the idea of expecting people to speak English to me when I'm in their country. I was like, oh, it gives me colonizing vibes. So I'm superior, you have to speak English to me. That's the kind of way I thought. So I'm I really, really have to learn the language. And I will struggle through a sentence before I try and speak English. And then if the person says it's okay, I can speak English, then I'm okay, let's switch. But yeah, it was so tough in the beginning, and I wasn't expecting all of those little things.
It's all this, we struggle most with that expectation compared to the reality, right? I think that's one of the things with the migrant experience I find that is so, fascinating as well in a way, because we have certain expectations, and you talk about it a lot, and I want to dive into that, because let's say when you were starting to learn the Hindi language, especially to first adapt and then in your own household before you go outside, you talk about a lot in your teachings as well, that it's not about always knowing the grammar or vocabulary. It's what's beneath that. Sometimes the subtle pauses, the humor behind certain things. How did that help? How did you get adapted to these things in Hindi language?
By teaching English. Can you imagine? Honestly, they go hand in hand. By teaching English, it's helped me understand language better. So it's helped me to understand how to learn and understand another language, but it's also helped me be a better teacher,
right?
Because I can understand what my students are going through and I can understand things better. Before I started teaching English, and I'm really embarrassed to say this, but as a native speaker, I feel like a lot of people are the same. I only knew what a noun was. I did not know what an adverb, an adjective, the present perfect tense. I didn't know those things. I just knew that I said these words. I just knew that a noun was a person, place, or thing. That is all.
Wow.
Didn't even really know about verbs, anything. So by learning Hindi, it helped me. I started learning Hindi before I started teaching. So by understanding Hindi, that's helped me to understand grammar for English. But there's something in English called content words, which are nouns, adverbs, adjectives, and verbs. And basically they are your key words in a sentence. Now, if you know your content words in a sentence, the grammar words or function words, they exist really just for grammar. So if you're speaking and you're a beginner, let's say you want to say the sentence, I'm going to the store to buy some milk. If you just focus on those content words, going store, buy milk, you can really understand what someone's trying to say. You can understand the content, the keywords. So understanding that, yes, grammar is important, absolutely. But when you are learning a language, if you understand the content or the context and those keywords, then that's the most important thing, and that will help the listener as well. But as I was saying before, with communicating, it's not just the words you speak, right? It is the hand gestures, the body language, your tone as well. So understanding all of these things really helps you to be a better communicator and can help with your experience speaking that language in another country.
amazing because it shows
Sorry,
me
I
a
got
different
really animated there,
perspective.
didn't I?
No, it was really like that's really amazing, Amanda, because like when you share that in a way, it feels like I feel like language is amazing, but also it is a barrier for sometimes to foster that human connection that we all are. Like,
Yeah.
I know we have
Yeah.
cultures, barriers, borders, and languages, but when you
Yeah.
share that in a way that it is the content that you need to understand, and then it helps it a bit easier for you to dive into the language and learn it rather than
Yeah.
being perfect about the grammar.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Now, this is what holds so many people back is that they think that they need to have perfect grammar and perfect sentences. And so because they think they need to be perfect, they're scared to try because they're scared to make mistakes. And it's this
Yep.
vicious cycle. And then you're never going to improve because if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn from them. And the thing about in Australia is that people are not going to correct your English if you make mistakes because it's seen as unsolicited feedback, which we don't like to do. Whereas in a lot of other countries, like here, if I'm speaking Hindi to the person at my gym, they will correct me if I make a mistake, or they will help. They see it as helping. They're going to help finish my sentence for me, I should say, rather than correct me.
Right.
So people are so scared of making these mistakes and being so perfect. But honestly, if people can understand the content words, the context of what you're saying, that's the most important part of communicating. And if they don't understand, they might ask you, they might try and paraphrase in a way to say like, is this what you meant? Or they might ask you to say it again. But what's the worst that's going to happen? It's actually not the end of the world in the bigger scheme of things. It's really not.
It's all that inner critic that we have. Sometimes it is holding us back.
Absolutely.
To take that action,
Yes.
right? I wanted to dive into that when we go to the Aussie English part.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I know in our last conversation, we talk about slang a lot, right? That's the Aussie
Yeah.
slang. I mean, we can go
Yeah.
on and talk about it. There's plenty of content in your social channels about Aussie slang.
Yeah.
But what about Hindi slang?
Oh,
Hindi slang in the same way we relate to Aussie slang?
not really too much, to be honest. I mean, there is definitely Hindi slang, but I feel like there's something called Shuddh Hindi, which it means like pure or proper Hindi. Textbook Hindi. So I learnt Hindi through a proper language school, through textbooks,
Right.
everything. It was actually really great. But there's just some words that people don't really use in day to day. So I wouldn't say that for me slang was a challenge. My challenge is probably that I speak too pure. And it's not how people actually speak here. An example would be, gosh, what did I use the other week with someone, and she was at the gym and she laughed at me and that we don't use that, that's too proper. I can't really remember now. I just turn it into a bit of a joke now, typical Australian self-deprecating humour, and I just go, oh, whatever, I speak Shuddh Hindi, but I can't remember what the word was. But yeah, so that was probably more of a challenge for me than say the slang. And in the way people text, so if you have
Yep.
if you read comments, not everyone's writing in the script. People are writing in romanization characters, your A to Z alphabet.
Yep.
A to Z, sorry. But, oh my gosh, people cut out whole letters. And I remember reading a comment once and I'm like, what the hell does this say? Because they will drop whole letters and I don't really know why. So I guess there's more text slang, if anything. Whereas I write proper, the whole word out.
Right. That has happened to me when I think in Australia when I was starting to write formal, because Sri Lanka still has a British education system, O-level, A-levels,
Yeah.
and it's very formal, the system. And then when I started writing emails here, I got embarrassed sometimes. It's so formal
Yeah.
when I saw the reply from my own manager, which is so casual and
Yeah.
there's nothing in it. So that's a
Yeah.
part of where we think it should go full blown formal.
Yeah.
Where they
Yeah.
just cut out when
Yeah.
it gets localized. Right. Now let's get into your specialty, that is Aussie English, right? I think we
Yeah.
touched on a bit about why its connection is important over correction all the time. But
Yeah.
now for me, coaching migrants who are in Australia over the last 3-4 years, I wanted to get your insights on what are the common myths that people have around Aussie English.
that everyone says g'day and everyone calls everyone mate. Honestly, we don't. I never use g'day. I mean, I do actually, like in my emails, but that's definitely ironically. But not everyone says g'day. So that's one myth. I never call people mate. And again, this is just my experience. It doesn't mean that my experience trumps others, but it's just to give you an example that I'm someone who doesn't say these things, whereas there is this perception that everyone does. And I know many people who don't. So the word mate, you can refer to it like, hey mate, how you going? I use mate in a very sarcastic way. Oh, mate, what are you doing? Like that kind of tone. So yes, there's those myths that everyone says g'day or mate, but not everyone does. You know, it's just a word. They're just words. Another myth would be that you have to speak slang. You don't. I mean, I have a whole course on slang, but the idea of creating that was not to get people to start, you know, using 3 slang words every sentence. It's to help them understand people, because people are going to use it. But you don't have to. You don't have to speak slang if you don't want to. If you're not comfortable saying g'day, don't. But try it out. You know, try it out. See how it feels. And if it doesn't feel comfortable, don't do it. So not everyone, like, you don't have to speak slang as a migrant. Like, if you want to, go for it. Sure, Aussies will probably love it, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement of the language being in Australia. Some people just love learning it and saying it for fun, but you don't have to.
I think it's amazing you share that, because I know even for me, I talk about why that experience of learning as a migrant is so vital for you to enjoy that journey. Because for an example, I had never received a proper guide or a communication from anyone, because I worked with my migration agent. All I've learned about Australia is because I watched cricket and I had an understanding about cricket, but in terms of language, nothing. Sometimes when I hear, like, I remember it's so difficult to understand even back in the day. But when I got my visa, what I received from my migration agent was just a quick guide about like Aussie slang, and you need to know this. It created a pressure that if I didn't know that, like, I wouldn't do well. So I came here with that baggage in my mind, right?
Yeah.
So already thinking that I am 2 steps behind. And that's a mindset I think a lot of migrants identify with.
Yeah.
What do you have to say from your experience teaching migrants who's settling in Australia about slang and how should they see about this scenario about slang?
The thing that really bothers me about Australian slang is that, and I know this because when I did my research for my course, I typed in like Australian slang, and so many articles on the first page of Google are like nearly 10 years old, and they're slang words that people don't really say anymore. I mean, yes, if you go to like country areas, people are probably still going to say things like Sheila, which is like slang for a woman, or bonza, which means great. I think that's quite that was very common originally in Victoria. I could be wrong about that, but anyway. And, you know, I think a lot of these blog posts share these things because they are like stereotypical Australian, but it's really not how people speak. If you want to see how people speak, oh my gosh, Facebook and Instagram comments, read the comments of like Australian news pages, any sort of Australian influencer or celebrity, because the way people type is how they speak. And you will get a really good understanding of like common themes and, you know, words that people use from reading comments. If you don't want to follow those pages, join your local community group. So, for example, let's say Melbourne. You know, you want to have a look at, you know, Melbourne community or whatever suburb you live in, buy, swap and sell pages, those sorts of things. Read the comments. Like, they're pretty fun, actually, pretty funny to read. But you'll get a really good understanding there. But don't put pressure on yourself to learn it, to speak it. Because again, as I said, you know, not every Australian speaks with all this slang, and it depends on where you are. I interviewed someone last year for my podcast, an English teacher from Melbourne, and she was only a couple of kilometres outside of the CBD, and she said that they grew up not really speaking slang. So really depends on where you are. So yeah, don't put pressure on yourself to learn it. Yes, if you want to learn it so you can understand others, absolutely go for it. But don't put pressure on yourself to learn it, to speak it, because it really is not like a make or break situation.
Amazing. Like it's one of the misconceptions, and thanks for sharing your expertise here, Amanda, because it really helps. I wish I had someone telling me this when I moved here, because I put myself there thinking that I don't understand slang and I'm just, I can't communicate, and then it grows on you, right? As a migrant, right? Coming to pronunciation part, like that's the key thing. Like, okay, we discussed about slang. Why is pronunciation important?
It's just how people can understand you. It's a key part of communication, really. Pronunciation is not just about sounds, it's about how those sounds are in words, it's how those words are in sentences. But speed, one of the biggest things I see, especially with people from South Asia, is that, let's use India as an example, where English is one of the most commonly spoken languages in the country. So people grow up in India with English essentially being their mother tongue. However, because they're so confident in that language, they speak quite fast, as anyone does in their mother tongue. Like, I know I'm speaking really fast today. Sorry for that to people listening, because I know I am speaking really fast. I do that when I get animated. But the thing about speaking fast with an accent of any kind is that when you go to an English-speaking country, if someone is not used to that sort of accent, speed can create a huge barrier. I did a speaking event for a networking presentation at the end of last year in Brisbane for international students, and most of them were from South Asia. Right. And I had probably 3 or 4 people come up to me in the networking part at the end saying that when I was in India, I was such a confident English speaker, and then I moved here and people can't understand me. And I said, I guarantee it's probably your speed, because they were speaking quite fast. If you can learn to slow down and articulate yourself and just be a bit more clearer with the way you speak, that is going to solve so many problems, or let's say resolve some challenges. Pronunciation is important because, yes, Australia is a multicultural country, but there will be people who haven't had much exposure to accents. And that's not on you, that's really on them. And so for me, yes, I'm a native English speaker, but my God, if I hear a Scottish accent, I have to listen to it 3 or 4 times to really understand, because I don't have that exposure to that language or that accent, dialect. It's the same for migrants when they go to Australia. So you could be a very confident speaker in your country, but when you go to Australia and people start saying, sorry, can you repeat that? I don't understand you. That starts to wear your confidence down, doesn't it? And it's all
100%.
because that person probably hasn't had exposure to your accent. So learning how to make some small modifications in your way of speaking, it's not erasing your accent, it's not erasing your identity. You're making some slight changes to improve your communication. And I say that from experience because I do that here. People cannot understand my Australian English accent, again, lack of exposure. So I have to speak certain words with an Indian English accent for ease of communication. It's not taking away my identity, it's just making communication easier. And that's all about pronunciation to improve communication.
Such gold tips, Amanda, because slowing down is one of the biggest challenges. I think you shared why pronunciation is important, and it's not always your communication, but it's also how the other person perceive it and its lack of exposure.
Exactly.
That is a really big mindset shift, right? Because I used to come here and then think, okay, they should understand me. Otherwise, if someone has said, okay, can you repeat that? There were a number of times that happened in meetings in my first job where I used to go home and think about, why didn't this person understand me? Is it like I'm communicating something wrong, or I don't understand? And that fear of feeling, being misunderstood. But if you feel it's a lack of exposure, it's not necessarily always that they intend to say that you don't understand. It's just a lack of exposure, right? For someone like, let's say, new here in Australia, they started their first job and they're listening to this conversation, and one tactic they're trying to do is, okay, slow down and then focus on it. Also helps your nervous system as well,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Because with language, it comes the stress, the anxiety, when you have to translate everything in a second language. So one thing is slowing down. What are other things that you have helped your students to improve the pronunciation?
So I have a lot of students who come to me for accent training. So they want to improve their accent or sound, I guess, have more of a neutral accent in Australia. And that's completely okay. Like, everyone has different goals, but don't look at someone and think, oh, they are wanting to, have, their goal is to have almost like a near native Australian accent. That's their goal. That doesn't have to be yours. And I help, whatever someone's goal is, I help them. If they come to me and they want to do that, I will help them. If someone comes to me and says, I want to improve my pronunciation, but I don't want to change my accent, that's fine. I will have different corrections and feedback for those sorts of people. So if someone comes to me wanting to improve their pronunciation, but they don't want to completely change their accent, then what you can do, you still need to have exposure to the language. I have people come to me who have trouble to understand Australians. They want to improve their pronunciation and communication, but they don't have any exposure to the language except for in the workplace. So they're very good in the workplace communication or understanding. You have to expose yourself to the language more. It goes back to what I was saying before about people not being able to understand you because of lack of exposure. It works both ways. Think about when you first got to Australia, not just you, but people listening. And maybe the only exposure to English you had was American English, and you got to Australia and you thought, oh my God, what the hell are these people talking about? Lack of exposure, right?
That's me.
So something that I help my students with is improving their listening, because listening and speaking go hand in hand. If you can improve your listening skills, it's going to help you understand pronunciation and help you understand how to pronounce words better. So pronunciation is also not just about how words are sounded out, it's also about your intonation, your word stress. If you're stressing the wrong words, that will sound a little bit strange. Sometimes you might stress the wrong word, especially when you have nouns and verb pairs. So let's say project as a noun. I am working on a project at the moment. Verb is project. So the stress changes. So understanding those kind of key differences as well is really important for pronunciation. But yeah, mostly we do in class, we do a lot of reading, I give feedback, we learn the different rules of pronunciation of different sounds if they come to me for accent training. And then there's just a lot of speaking and reading, because pronunciation is an active skill. You have to do it to get better.
Just do it, right? That tip is really,
yeah,
that tip is really effective. And you talked about why, that's why I found really interesting the listening part. Because for a migrant, I find a lot of migrants, like when they try to adjust in their workplace and trying to, speak Aussie English, there's always this chatter, because we talked about, vocabulary is important, grammar is important, but we all know there is this other battle. And I find this because what's that saying, that when you have a conversation, there are two speakers. The one is that you're speaking to someone else, and the other speaker is that voice in your head, right? So you're always like, that inner critic is always telling you something, and especially for migrants, I find it's trying to critique your own communication. So which impairs your ability to listen more, right? And that comes from a lot of things. Sometimes your upbringing, the conditioning, and then that image you have on yourself based on your some kind of an experience, right? What do you have to say about that? Because beyond the surface level tactics, pronunciation, grammar, what do you have to say from your experience of managing that inner critic when it comes to language?
Oh, that's such a hard question, because I still have a pretty bad inner critic. I think we have to learn really how to drop our ego, honestly, because ego is such a killer in so many things. Like, what I mean by that, as an example, I do a lot of Hindi, not so much anymore, but I used to do vlogs in Hindi.
Right.
and I'm not saying this that everyone has to go out and start recording themselves to put on the internet, but by doing that, you're learning to enjoy your own voice, and you have to learn how to like your own voice. When I issue homework for my pronunciation students or accent training students, and I say you have to like send me a recording, either, you know, we kind of rotate it. It might be a list of sentences, a short reading. Sometimes I get them to do just like a free talking. I'll give them a little topic and they just have to speak freely, and people don't like listening back to themselves. And I get it, because I remember my very first YouTube video like years ago on why I started my other channel, 𝗲𝗍𝗃𝗃. Oh, I hate watching it back. But you really do start to become more comfortable in yourself with that. So practicing talking to yourself, for people who are nervous to speak to native speakers or to speak English, probably the number one tip I give to people is start from your own home. Practice speaking to yourself out loud. Up here, have English only, like, 5 minutes a day where you just think in English, or you're just speaking to yourself in English. Because again, that is kind of building up your skill, it's building up your exposure to the language, and then it's building your confidence, because the more you do it to yourself, you're not going to be focused too much when you're speaking to someone else. Because what happens is you speak to someone else and then you're not listening to what they're saying because you're so focused on your next reply. And then they're going to know that you are not really paying attention to them, because all you're doing is thinking, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? But again, exposure. I feel like a broken record. Exposure, practice by doing these things either by yourself. Oh my gosh, you can even use ChatGPT. There's a speak function where you can use it as a buddy. Having these sorts of activities that you can do in your own time is going to help with your critical thinking and your free talking and thinking on the spot. I had someone message me a few weeks ago asking, saying that she has trouble speaking spontaneously. So I gave her some tips that, if you're not speaking to yourself, start. Because by just randomly thinking of things, or like thinking of a topic, speaking to yourself on the spot, it is practice. It is a skill. It requires practice. It's like learning to ride a bike. It's like learning to drive a car. You can't expect yourself to be good at this thing the first time you try it. You have to give yourself time, patience, and practice.
Beautiful advice, Amanda, because it relates back to the point of, you talked about ego. It's very like a crowded kind of a word. People have a lot of misconception around it, thinking ego is only about when you have like too much pride and all that.
Yeah.
But it's just to reflect on my own learnings. It's just about that when you start to speak to yourself, spend a bit more time with yourself, you can understand those challenges and a bit more awareness about you. That itself is the working on your ego, because a lot of people don't like talking to the screen or recording themselves because they don't like spending time with themselves. And then we sometimes go into the externals and say, the world is not friendly enough for me, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to do that, especially for migrants. I'm not saying that by any means to judge anyone. I know sometimes the outside world can be cruel, right? It's not fair by any means, but there's so much of work you can do internally to start practicing yourself. When you have the chance, you can be intentional about it, right?
Yeah.
Start practicing more with yourself, understand how these thought patterns are, how these words come out, and then you feel a bit more present on the next conversation, rather than thinking it's not something you can fix, and just facing this challenge over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right.
You're launching a new course, Connected Speech, right?
Yes.
For listeners who doesn't have any clue about what Connected Speech is, what is Connected Speech?
So it is the way that English speakers blend words together, drop sounds, connect our sentences essentially. So when people say, oh my gosh, English speakers talk so fast, there are reasons behind that. It's not just that we increase our speed. There are ways that we make ourselves speak fast. We drop sounds that are not relevant or that are impeding, I guess, the way we can speak fast. We blend sounds together. So one of my favorite examples is the phrasal verb look up. Okay, so if you were to say look as a separate word, you're adding stress on the end of k to finish the sound, look. And then you're putting this unnecessary pause in between look up, which sounds unnatural. So don't look up, okay? Now, if you take that k at the end and shift it to up and create this new syllable, look up, okay? So it's taking away that unnecessary pause, bringing those words together. With don't, we drop the T, don't look up, rather than don't look up.
Right.
So learning how connected speech works helps you to sound more natural because you're not putting these unnecessary pauses in between words or sounds, but it helps you to understand fast speakers because you're understanding, I guess, the science behind why they're speaking fast. There are so many different concepts of connected speech. You have linking, which is what we just did with look up. There's elision, where we drop that t at the end of don't. There's assimilation, where sounds blend together. Like, for example, don't you becomes don't you, and creates this new sound. Don't you like that? There is, what else? Intrusive sounds. So you're a cricket fan, you've probably heard this a lot. Australia and New Zealand. We put an R in there. Australia-ren. That's not something Americans do though. Australia and New Zealand. The verb going. Okay, I've heard people say going, but we put a W in there. Going. I'm going home. So that is an intrusive sound or a shadow sound. But if you don't know that those sounds exist, you are going to be pausing because you're trying to separate those syllables. Another example would be, I'm just trying to think. So I said, okay? So if you were to read those words by themselves, so I said, robotic. In between so and I, we put a W, so I. Again, that's going to act as a bridge to bring those words together to speak naturally. So I said.
Wow.
So there's lots of different concepts in connected speech, and I'm very passionate about it, as you can probably tell. It's my favorite thing to teach.
I can tell how passionate, and this is like a masterclass for me in connected speech, because I know a bit about the joining words and a bit of assimilations, but not in the depth of how it's already been, applied in a day-to-day speech. And especially, love that you highlighted the difference between the Aussie and the American English as well, so that it's hopefully, we don't get a lot of negative comments on this, but it's amazing. It's just, again, understanding the differences and connected speech. It's something I'm really excited to also learn, and super stoked that you're launching this product or the course. I'm sure there's a lot of value in it for where students can learn from. I'll put the links in the chat as well if someone wants to check out. But again, amazing. Thanks for all your insights. This is wisdom. This is why I love having you in these chats. There's a lot of value. You always give your full heart out, and I know you tell that you get animated, but with that animation comes a lot of wisdom, and I want to take as much as possible from you today. Right now, let's take a bit of a pull to the English side. I know you're an entrepreneur. Are you an entrepreneur or a solopreneur? Do you have a team, or you're the one who's behind Aussie English?
It's honestly, no, I shouldn't say it's just me. I do sometimes hire out someone to edit my podcast, but that is very rare. Most of it is me. My husband jokes that he's my business manager because I do actually go to him for a lot of decisions, but he doesn't take an income from it, so it is just me.
Wow, I can't believe, I don't know how you do it, to be honest, because I know it's amazing to see the successes and what you have achieved. I think you have more than 100k followers on
128.
128. Sorry, beg your pardon. So 128 maybe.
It
I had
just
to
hit
catch up.
128,000 a few days ago.
Wow, I had to catch up on that. So sorry about that, Amanda. Now,
I'm just teasing. It's okay.
what's the I wanted to ask the behind the scenes. What happens behind Aussie English with Amanda? What's your day-to-day setup like?
It's too much, honestly. It's probably not even good I share it because it's definitely on the edge of burnout. Just kidding. So I physically teach 4 hours a day at the moment. I really want to drop that down eventually. When I first started teaching, though, I was doing 8 hours of teaching a day. That was a lot, but it's actually very normal for teachers who start on platforms. I think every teacher I've spoken to has started out like this. So nowadays, I do 4 hours teaching a day. In between, I'm probably in my office from like 9 till 5 though. I have like a break in the middle of the day. When I'm not teaching, I do admin stuff. So it's either lesson planning, checking homework, creating LinkedIn posts to schedule, creating my content for Instagram for the next week. Instagram is my main platform. Any videos I create for Instagram, I just repurpose onto TikTok and YouTube Shorts. I have my podcast, which, as I said, I sometimes outsource the editing. Now that I've cut that back to once a fortnight, I probably will just outsource the editing completely because I have the money for that now, essentially. Whereas every week was a bit expensive. Realistically, I started my business 2 years ago. April last year was when I started my Instagram account. I created my brand, my logo, as you can see here. But I became an independent teacher. I left the teaching platforms April last year. So that's when I started I built my own website. And again, I've done everything myself. My website creation has all been me, all the online courses. I do all my own email marketing. I did for a while have, and I still have, templates. So I signed up to a social media marketing sort of coach. And in her membership, she gave you templates for social media, which was great. And I have a few of her online courses. Like, I'm in the middle of my launch right now for my connected speech course, and all of my emails, my stories, my Instagram content, yes, that's it. Yeah, it comes from her course. So she gives you the templates. So that has helped a lot. But yeah, basically everything I is myself. So it's just very busy.
Still don't believe how you do it. Like from April last year, so it's not like not even 2 years, right? Getting 100K, 128K followers.
That was 2 years though. Yes, I created Instagram April 2 years ago. So yeah.
But it's no easy feat. Like I remember one of your posts, you say you started filming at 6 a.m. and recording at 11 p.m. or the other way around.
That was last year for my online course. Yeah. Oh, that was, I was sick for a month after that, honestly.
I want to dive into that because, I relate to a lot of the challenges that we all go through as, solopreneurs, right? Managing your own business. I'm grateful to have a team, but like it's just the beginning, the grind is so much. It takes a lot of, toll on you.
It does. Yeah.
What was that conversation like that you had with yourself when things were tough?
Gosh, I used to at that time I was writing daily affirmations and I was doing morning meditations and things like that. I think as I started to get a bit more experience with it, right now this launch has been a little bit hectic. So I wouldn't say that I'm up filming morning to night, but it definitely has been long days. Not too long though. It's just really last week was a really long week and this week's going to be long as well. But I think last year when I launched my very first online course, I had a coach. So that helped a lot. So he had basically helped me with the email marketing side and my social media side. And he had created a launch planner with my completion dates for each task. That really helped. So that after I finished working with him, I took that knowledge for my other courses. Plus I have those templates, but the launch planner has really helped where I've given myself tasks and the dates and everything of when I need to complete things by, because I'm a very analytical and visual person. I need to see things written down in front of me. Right. Otherwise I panic. What am I doing? But last year I did a lot of reflecting on how far I'd come and the value I was putting into the the lessons. And it really helped having the support of my husband, because I would be up at 6 recording because it was summer and my aircon I had, you can't hear my aircon now because it's new, but the aircon I had last year would shake the window. So I had to film early morning because I couldn't use my aircon. There were no dogs barking outside. There were no car horns beeping. There were no cows mooing. All of the joys that come with India. And then I would film in the morning And then at night, I would record my pronunciation drills because for the same reason. But I couldn't film myself at night because it was too dark. So I had to manage that. There were times I would forget to eat dinner. My husband would get home from the gym at like 10 and say, have you eaten? I'm like, what's the time? No, I haven't. Because in between that, I was still having to teach. Back then I was doing, I think I was on 5 or 6 hours teaching a day, checking homework, writing lesson plans, doing all my admin stuff. So I just kept reminding myself that it was all worth it, and that, you know, I'm building up a business, I'm building up like my career, and it requires a lot of like hard work in the early days.
How do you see yourself now, looking back and see what the impact that you have, delivered to your students, the impact you had from your lessons? How do you see that now?
It's so hard because I feel like I'm someone that's always chasing a goal, and it's not a healthy thing to have. And I really need to learn to slow down and just really reflect and embrace. And that's something I'm going to do this course. I have a plan in place to, like, because the VIP starts this weekend. So when that happens, I have, some journaling prompts there so I can reflect and things like that. Because I always feel like I'm trying to chase something. It's that hustle culture at the end of the day, isn't it? But in terms of how I kind of see myself now, I'm so proud of myself, actually. Like, I have done so much. Like, I moved here 6 years ago. I couldn't work for like 2 years, a year and a half or whatever it was. Basically ran out of savings because we paid for a wedding, plus COVID happened, and my husband, he owns liquor stores, bottle shops, and they were closed during COVID. They weren't essential. So we had no income. We were living off my income, my savings, sorry. This is something I'm so proud of because it's my own. It's my own thing. It's something that I've done for myself. And everything that I have either bought for the house or invested in the house or invested in myself has come from this business. And I just love it. I love what I do. I love being able to help people. I love seeing people's, like, the light bulb go off in their head when they've like realize something or they've achieved something. And it's so good. I've always worked in customer service, just in different capacities. Like, I've worked in hotels, customer service. I've worked in call centers. It's a form of customer service. And something about teaching and what I'm doing, it's still a form of customer service. I'm still providing a service to a customer, right? There's that kind of exchange. And I've always been someone who's loved helping others, and this is no different.
What a beautiful way to say it, right? And you're doing a service, and it sometimes helps. Like, I find that as well to be connected to what you do, even when you're like sometimes going through a challenge, and sometimes some days are not really, you don't feel like yourself and things are not going to place, and you're just chasing the other thing and one after the other. But when you understand that you are doing something that is aligned with your values, and you're doing something towards the world or service, it helps you, manage through that. The other part I wanted to ask is, I know you've had a massive success in such a short time, right? That is a lot of followers, a lot of attention in the media and socials as well. How do you stay grounded amid all this success?
I don't know if I do.
Okay, that's a good start.
I don't know if I do stay grounded. No, I think I do. I'm just kidding. Some days it's really bloody hard though, Pan. I have to admit, like, it's been a while since I've gotten a troll comment, but the social media comments really do bring me down. Like, I've had I've had comments from Australians telling me that I'm wrong about something, which whatever, like, I've really, really learned to understand now that just because they haven't heard something where they're from doesn't mean that I'm wrong. I've had people, and I know that this is not to the extent that I know that South Asians, especially Indians, get in Australia, but I've had people, like Australians, comment on my posts when they know that I live in India, telling me to stay there or to leave Australia, piss off. I've had people comment things where I've done reels with my husband where, like, I remember someone specifically didn't know that we lived in India, and he said, oh, like, off back to India, like, you dirty curry muncher or something like that. Those things really bother me, and it's so easy for people who aren't, oh my god, I'm getting emotional. It's so easy for people who aren't in the public eye to say like, just don't worry about it, just ignore it. But I still see those things, right? I have to block when I can. I've put keywords like hide keywords, 𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗀 or like 𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃 or, all those sorts of things. I've had to hide that. Now I just delete and block. I don't even really care. So I don't know if I do stay grounded in some things, because other days I do get really bothered by that. But I really try to just remember my own values, remember where I'm from. There was a period of time last year where, like, as I said before, I was in this social media membership where she gave us templates for content, and it was a lot of selling, a lot of selling. And then this year I thought, this is enough. I don't like this. I've lost kind of the reason why I started Instagram. So then I started shifting, and I posted about this on LinkedIn, where I post more on LinkedIn, I did before, about being a migrant in India, learning a language and my shared experiences. And that's something that I kind of tried not to put onto Instagram, because I had those experiences early on of like the racism that came with it. And then in the end I thought, like, if I can help even just one person with my experience. So I've started repurposing my LinkedIn posts as Instagram posts, and they do the best on my page now. And I just love being able to share my experiences and know that there are people out there who can relate. One thing I also do want to say though is that be very careful about who you follow, and make sure that their values do align with your own. And if my values don't align with someone's, unfollow me, honestly, like, it's okay. But I have seen 2 times now where English teachers on different forms of social media, where they have made some very questionable comments about migrants in particular, maybe Muslims or just Indians in general, or any other like people of color, but they're profiting off of this demographic, but they think that their comments aren't seen. And that really bothers me. Like, how can you say those things so publicly when you're making money off that demographic? You're making money off teaching people English, and those people are most likely in foreign countries. So just be very careful about who you follow, and make sure that your values do align with them. Sorry, I went off on a huge tangent there. Sorry.
No, that was, I feel like I was talking to myself as well, but I was really curious to hear, because more followers you get, more exposure you get to people who align with your values, people who you don't, which is something we can't control in the current like social media
Absolutely.
space.
So you have to focus on what you can control.
Yeah. But as again, Amanda, I mean, I try to stay grounded as well, but sometimes it gets really difficult. But one thing, I think in a podcast or conversation amongst shared, is when people comment on your post or have judgment, they're commenting on the idea of you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, if they don't know the real you, the service that you are doing, people that you are helping, you know that they are just commenting on the idea. Should it really bother you helping that one person on the other?
Exactly. And
right?
they're not the kind of people you want in your like social, I don't want to say social circle, I don't know the right word. They're not the people you want in your community, let's say.
So you're going to get tracked. I mean, that's the part of this part. But again, you have the choice. You can be intentional about blocking them or just neglecting it. It's not easy always to not care about it, but at least you try to remind yourself why you are doing the work you do. Yeah. And then like sit in that method. It just makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah,
amazing.
Definitely.
Like, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing this, Amanda, because I'm sure.
I'm so sorry. Like, how embarrassing.
No, it's not embarrassing. It's really,
I don't think I've ever gotten like that emotional in an interview. Whew. I think it's because I said these things out loud publicly, and they're things that I've normally tell to friends, but it's not things that I really share about the struggles. Because I normally ask my guests, how do you handle negative social media? But yeah, I've never really talked about my experiences of it.
So I think I've, there was a bit of a crucial moment on this podcast. So cracked it open, yes. Now, jokes aside, thanks for really sharing your insights.
Thank you.
Amanda, I know that we can go on about, talking about all these things, but I think it has been a really, I like talking with you because I feel like it's very, like, it's a flowing conversation always whenever I speak with you.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, the work you do, and it's inspiring to see what you have achieved and what you are building in the Aussie English space. So excited for your new course as well. Before we wrap up, I have a ritual, a question that I ask from every guest.
Sure.
Right? In your experience, what is one thing, one lesson, or something that you unlayered, or I would say unlearned? It could be something from your entrepreneurial journey, your teaching journey, or sometimes it could be from your personal journey as well. What's one thing you unlearned?
I think look at ways that you can get help. So I think if we're talking from an entrepreneurial, oh my gosh, can't even say, that's terrible, my entrepreneur journey, is that, and I think a lot of people have this when they start out, obviously funds are limited, money is tight, right?
Yep.
So you feel like you do have to take on everything. I mean, I'm still doing it now, but look at where you can get help. That might mean, like, for example, I live in India, I don't do it, but I could, if I wanted to, get house help. But it's just my husband and I share chores, so that's not really an issue. But that is something that someone might think about, because if that's taking that mental load off of you to be able to focus on your business, do it. For me, I'm outsourcing my podcast. I'm looking at ways to take the admin tasks away from me so that I can focus my time and energy into somewhere else. Ask for help. Like, this is a really lonely journey, but if you have the contacts, meeting people on LinkedIn, I have met so many amazing English teachers through Instagram that when I do have a question, I can ask them. You don't have to do it all alone. Trying to find ways to just ask for help, because I feel like as humans, we want to do everything ourselves, right? And like I said earlier, I moved here and I lost so much independence that now I'm scared to give up certain things, because I'm like, what happens if I lose my independence again? But it's not like that. You have to, find ways to be able to either ask for help or outsource or delegate in different areas so that you don't burn out and that you can focus on the important things.
Beautiful. Thanks for that wonderful answer. Amanda, thanks again for your time today. It's been a wonderful conversation. We talked from your own journey to migrated to India, and then there was a masterclass around Aussie English and connected speech. And then we dived into your entrepreneurial journey and the hidden challenges that sometimes no one sees. So thankful for your time and really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll chat soon.
It's been great. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.